Let's talk about this match and the Pokemon. Lou's yelling about the Gastrodon, but a Pheasantipiti. If you got that right, incredible, kudos.
Honestly, the involuntary scream of excitement to see the Gastrodon. It is Sierra's personal choice of Gastrodon form. However, I will take it because we are at EUIC and I am excited. It also has great color coordination with that Pheasantipiti that I have not seen in a hot minute. The rest of the team, though, as well, very interesting on Flavio's side. Baxcalibur, something we saw in the grand final of EUIC last year, piloted by Gabriella Gardi, but wasn't able to take the win. And to kind of complete that classic Firewater Grass core, with Gastrodon being the water of that core, is the classic Rillaboom and Incineroar. But on Adam's side as well, some very interesting choices.
Oh, 100% here. There is quite a few of these typical Pokemon that we're looking into this. So we talked about that Landorus, the Landorus Eye, that has been been going through the ranks. And I think we actually have just a really, really well-balanced team when we're looking over at Adam's end. But let's not talk about a typical team just to kick things off. Let's talk about this, because Flavio's team, no words. And something that's been talked about is the Gastrodon with the Storm Drain. When we've seen something like that Wellspring Ogerpon be popping up more and more in usage because of Water Absorb, well, the Storm Drain takes that one further. Of course, there is a lot of grass types that can threaten you out there, but we have the Bug Terastallization, which is absolutely amazing.
Exactly, and as well seeing Heatran come back, and I remember everyone joking when Terastallization first came in last year that Heatran was the ultimate grass-type Pokemon because you could give it that really amazing defensive Terra typing and then still be immune to Fire-type moves thanks to Flash Fire. We have seen this transition into turning into the Fairy typing because of the rise of Ogerpon being able to have that Mold Breaker ability and just cut through the Flash Fire. So it's nice to see that change and nice to see Heatran back on the field.
100%. We also see the Baxcalibur coming out, Clear Amulet, make sure that your stats aren't quite dropped. You have some priority with that Ice Shard. You also have the capability of setting up with a Sword Stance. So a Pokemon that can definitely take a hit or two. And hey, it can be so dangerous if it gets set up. I'm still so intrigued about the Pheasantipiti. Toxic Chain, you can be dealing just such a great, you can just be poisoning things out there, and it can deal a good amount of damage. We'll have to see how it pairs up into something that's a lot more of these conventional choices when we're looking over on Adam's end of the field.
I really like to see this team because yes, it is conventional. You've got again that Fire Water Grass core with Rillaboom, Incineroar, and Urshifu Rapid Strike. But take a closer look at that Urshifu. It's running a really unique set. You turn obviously to pivot out of there, but instead of running something like the Aqua Jet, it's running Ice Spinner, and I really like this. Ice is an incredibly good offensive coverage move, but also Ice Spinner gets rid of terrain, and where there is Rillaboom, where there is potential Indeedee, it's a really nice additional tech.
What I really liked here too, when we look at that Ogerpon Heart Flame, talked about, hey, you don't necessarily always see the follow me because you might want to go for something else. Sword Stance, you can take advantage of a passive turn, but this is where we also see that double grass core come out because you do have that grassy glide. So you have the Rillaboom to set up the terrain, and you have a potential of a double priority here, which your opponent then really has to be watching out for. That cannot be disregarded whatsoever.
I completely agree, and I like the Incineroar as well with that cheeky Will-O-Wisp on there. As long as it's able to connect, it can be a really effective way to completely shut down opposing physical attackers when you pair it up with that Intimidate ability too. The Pokemon that really is the talk of the town is this Raging Bolt. It has certainly torn up the scene since it's come into effect, and running that Calm Mind can make it an incredibly specially defensive wall if it is able to get positioned correctly.
Especially when you have the leftovers and that grassy terrain recovery. We saw Brady Smith at the Vancouver Regionals. Raging Bolt knocked down to 2 HP, and it managed to get back to full health before the end of the match because of how he adjusted and played around. So that Raging Bolt, you can get that special attack boost with that Calm Mind. You can kind of sit around, let that health regain. That it can be such a difficult Pokemon to get through.
Exactly, and particularly in this meta, coming into a tournament, we always ask our trainers, do you go for the tried and tested comfort picks, the things that are currently on meta, or do you try and completely break the mold? And this is a really nice matchup between 6 very standard Pokemon and 6 that are very, very uniquely formed. I don't think many people have teched against Pheasantipiti or, to be honest, Gastrodon coming into this tournament, so it's going to be interesting to see how Adam adapts.
Yeah, when we talk about, hey, comfort is key because you want to know your team inside and out so you're not caught off guard by something. It's this type of team coming out from Flavio that I'm talking about because you won't know the damage rolls coming out from Pheasantipiti. If you do, you're incredible. You know all 1,000 plus Pokemon in there.
Let's go.
The rolls, because that is something different. That is something really unique. And it'll be really fun too. And you even have the Toxic, you have the Yawn, you have a couple of different ways to try to be slowing down or just kind of outlasting the opposing team, which is really quite nice.
That's where we see a good balance as well between kind of these fast, heavy hitters and then maybe the more slow and steady, you know, going for this toxic, going for some protects and just kind of ticking away at the damage stats can be a really interesting strategy. And I like the fact that Flavio does have that flexibility within his team.
100% here. I definitely don't know if we'll see the Gastrodon going on in this one. I'm so sorry, but do you have double grass?
Yeah, I totally feel that. And I mean, I do know that the Gastrodon is running that Bug Terror type, which is very, very interesting. But as you've said, you know, the fact that there's a Rillaboom on the field and Grassy Glide forces you to go for that terrestrialization on the Gastrodon. It depends if Flavio thinks it is worth it in the matchup. We'll have to see.
That's exactly it. It feels bad when you bring a Pokemon that is so dedicated to that, though the one nice thing would be that you are then hard locking the Urshifu Rapid Strike from using the Surging Strikes whenever it hits the field. And that is something too that Adam is going to have to respect. You might be, hey, maybe I won't necessarily see that Gastrodon, but at the same time you have to be certain. And an issue with that bug terrestrialization on the Gastrodon, when one of the grass Pokemon that is threatening you also has that Fire Heavy Cudgel to fire off into the bug attack either, well, that's not looking great either way.
Definitely, and the Urshifu, as you've mentioned, has such great utility as well. You know, yes, it's running Surging Strikes, that's something Gastrodon is going to be able to negate it from using, but Close Combat, Ice Spinner, and even the U-Turn to pivot out of there, bring in something like the Incineroar or the Rillaboom to apply some pressure, does make it, you know, not really that afraid of the little old slug. But again, taking a look back at Flavio's side, there's some really good calls you can go for here. I like the idea of the Incineroar and potentially even Baxcalibur, trying to use that Fake Out to enable a Swords Dance and then really make Baxcalibur an offensive threat on the field. Because things like the Ice Shard and also the Glaive Rush, that can have some really good coverage here.
It also then, if you are expecting to see the Landorus Eye on the other end, well then that's also going to be forcing Adam's hand in that terrestrialization, since that is going to be 4 times weak to that ice type, and you are going to be outsped before you could even get something like a substitute up. So if you are expecting that Landorus and you can force then Adam into that, that is going to be a terrestrialization that the rest of the team can't have. And you can be dealing with that poison type, since you can hit a lot of things into it even neutrally, or you have something like an Earth Power from either the Heatran or the Gastrodon to just deal with it that way.
That's where my mind was just going. Where's the Earth type damage that could come through to a potential poison Landorus? And it's only really on that Heatran and the Gastrodon. So maybe Gastrodon has some play, or that could still just be wishful thinking. Heatran, I think, has a lot more viability here, being able to go for something like the Magma Storm as well, Heavy Slam. There aren't any Flood Domains here, so Heavy Slam's kind of null and void. It's going to be difficult if that poison Landorus comes into play now I'm thinking about it.
When I'm just looking at this team, I think like the biggest notable thing to me is just the potential power difference coming out from these Pokemon. So I really think how these Pokemon pair up together and the cores and how you can kind of checkmate Adam is going to be the biggest thing here. Because when you look at these Pokemon just kind of one-on-one, well, I mean, this Landorus could just go crazy. The Urshifu, if there's no Gastrodon around, could go crazy. So I'm definitely more intrigued with how Flavio decides to play this in comparison to the Pokemon that he's brought doing that potential out damage by themselves.
I think setup's definitely going to be quite key for Flavio, but also the potential on Adam's side, something like the Calm Mind can go down there, or even the Sword Stance on the Ogerpon, I think would be really, really nice to give Adam some offensive pressure. For me, turn 0 is going to be incredibly critical. Where is the line of thinking going to go for these trainers? Are they trying to gain momentum straight away, get a very clean KO, or are they going to really try and take that step back, take the time to be able to get set up to sweep through later in the match? And if they've both got a similar strategy, calling turn 0 correctly is going to be critical.
Especially when you're Adam, how you build upon in this set, I think is going to be key. Because there's a couple of different leads coming out from Flavio that could potentially catch you off guard. So it's going to be how you adjust. And I feel like that's where Flavio definitely has then a potential upper hand going into this. Kicking into this match, it's going to be that double grass. Ogerpon and Rillaboom on one end, Baxcalibur and Incineroar on the opposing.
Great Pokemon choices from Flavio to counter a double grass duo with an ice and a fire type Pokemon. A lot of fake out potential on the field here from both Incineroar and that Rillaboom. But of course, both Pokemon and partners here are the ones with Sword Dance. There could be some setup here, Sierra.
And the thing is, too, is maybe if you're anticipating a potential fake out into that slot, then even the Protect. The Rillaboom having the faster one, you do have to be careful if you're Flavio of that going on forward. But you can also just kind of be like, okay, well, he'll expect to Protect then, so I can just try and go for a setup and start dealing some damage.
Exactly, and you can see the Ogerpon switching straight out here, wanting to make the adjustment, knowing that it was in a very vulnerable position from both of these Pokemon and can reset that Intimidate. Urshifu joins the field, though, as the Fake Out goes down into Baxcalibur. No setup for it today.
And that is just going to be a fake out, which is only going to be good for a little bit of chip into the Urshifu. So great swap coming out from Adam. And now something that can be pressuring in quite a variety of ways going on to the opposing end. We do get to see your favorite, the double favorite with the blue Gastrodon in the back too. So Adam has to be so careful. And Flavio, I mean, if you bring that Gastrodon in too early, there is still the Rillaboom on the opposing end that could be hitting a powerful attack into that slot.
At the minute you're playing the guessing game, if you're Adam, do I go for Surging Strikes? Is there going to be a Gastrodon in the back? There is indeed. We've got that sneaky inside, and it is the EC Gastrodon as well. Flavio has decided to try and switch that in. Let's see if there is potentially going to be that Surging Strikes, because it must be so tempting on Adam's side to go for that into the Incineroar and just remove it straight away from the field. It is Choice Scarf. It's going to be a very fast Urshifu, but there's the back Excalibur leaving. Here it comes, Sierra. I'm excited.
We'll have to see if the Gastrodon swap is worth it or not. Close combat from the Urshifu Rapid Strike. I don't think a bad choice either way. And that is going to be what's targeting into it. A lot of damage going into the Gastrodon. It will be a stage of lower defense and special defense over onto the Urshifu. U-turn from the Incineroar, so Gastrodon at least safe from the double up. Won't get killed this turn around, and Adam gets a pivot.
The issue is, though, Gastrodon has now been exposed, that information is revealed, and Adam is going to be cognizant to it throughout the rest of the match. Of course, the Urshifu is going to be locked into close combat. It is going to have its defense and special defense dropped by this, and the Incineroar still has the utility to go for a move in this turn. The one thing I like about the way Adam has played this, though, is he didn't fall into the trap of going for those Surging Strikes and has enabled to have that rotation with the Rillaboom, so Fake Out can come into effect later, and now Ogerpon can rejoin the field unintimidated.
This is so much damage potential that could be coming out, though. The parting shot will at least bring this to a -1. So if you want to be back at neutral, you do have to go ahead and be Terastallizing this Pokemon for that embody aspect. And instead of swapping out, you do have the opportunity to bring the Excalibur in or bring this Pheasantipede in and show us what it's got. I think the Gastrodon on the field is in a very terrifying position, though, since there is still the Grassy Glide, since the Heartflame Ogerpon does have that in its arsenal.
Yes, I completely agree. It's definitely a difficult time for the Gastrodon. I wouldn't be surprised to see it switch out in the next turn for something like that Incineroar to kind of drop the Intimidate down. You know that the opposing Urshifu is locked into close combat as well, so it doesn't have that guaranteed critical hit. The one thing I like is the Pheasantipede on the field. I want to see it maybe try and get some pressure down on the field. It can always go for something like a Toxic or even a Sludge Bomb and start applying pressure.
As well, too. I'm not quite sure how much damage this thing is going to be doing, but you do also have the Toxic Chain, so a potential chance to be badly poisoning a Pokemon over on Adam's end. And you do actually have moves that can be critically hitting. A Sludge Bomb into the Rillaboom surely is going to be doing a decent amount of damage here at this point.
Yes, and it is, you know, a reasonably bulky Pokemon, but you want to make sure that it's able to have that longevity on the field too. As you've mentioned, set those poisons up and start ticking away at the timer on the opposing side. It can be a slow and steady way to win a match, but at the end of the day, you deal damage to get the knockouts, and that's how you win.
And I mean, where it struggled for me is it's slow and steady, but you're going up against a team that has so much power to it. Even more so, Lando I going to be swapping into the field as Gastrodon go ahead and take its leave here.
Yes, Incineroar is replacing that Gastrodon. A really nice play by Flavio, being able to throw that Intimidate down onto the opposing Ogerpon. But as we know, the Landorus Incarna is running that special moveset, so isn't going to worry about that at all. The first Terastallization of the match is coming through, though, however.
It will be, and it will be that Heartflame Ogerpon Embody aspect, and also going into just a pure Fire type at this point. Embody aspect will be bringing it back up into neutral after the previous Intimidate at this point. Though I believe it was down 2 after the Incineroar coming back in, so this is still going to be dealing significantly less damage than you would hope coming out from this Pokemon. ID Cudgel, get this started. Pheasantipede taking the hit quite well.
And it's going to be able to take another one of those as well, as long as there isn't a cheeky critical hit in there. The Sludge Bomb not dealing too much to the Ogerpon, and of course the grassy terrain going to be able to enable those grounded to get a little bit of recovery.
Great job dropping that grass typing, and even with the Toxic Chain and the potential of badly poisoning, you're not going to be hitting it this time around. And that's, I think, one of the biggest issues with Pheasantipede is you're not necessarily getting the crazy damage output to start. And if you're not hitting that Toxic Chain, then it actually just kind of feels bad going on forward as well.
You really do need to keep your fingers crossed and try and get those secondary effects coming into fruition in order to allow Pheasantipede to shine. Incineroar being out on the field, though, in a position where it can maybe try and go for, you know, the parting shot again, just try and lower the offensive power that Adam is threatening on the field at the moment. The Ogerpon, yes, it has, you know, had its attack shot dropped by 1, but there is the potential of the critical hits on those Ivy Cudgels.
There definitely is. It's going to be Fake Out onto the Landorus first to be kicking things off. Swords Dance, though, so you're not going to necessarily have to rely on a crit. You can just try and be getting that damage up. It's going to be a +1 attack now after that one. but it's not going to be allowed to just sit here and run amok for free. Toxic fired off into it. It's going to badly poison it, so it's going to be taking more and more damage as things go on.
You know, I really like this play by Fezandipity, knowing that the Sludge Bomb may not even get the poison on it, it's not going to be able to get anywhere near a KO. Let's just guarantee that the poison happens on Ogerpon with that Toxic. And I mean, one way to be able to negate your Intimidate drops is by going for that Swords Dance. So I believe Ogerpon is now at +1. It's going to be incredibly formidable with those Ivy Cudgels into Fezandipity. So I'm glad it got the Toxic off there when it had the chance.
I'm still just worried about the amount of damage that Adam can be doing. Sure, your Pokemon is poisoned, but if there's ways around it. And if there is a passive turn coming out from Flavio, there is still the potential setup coming out from this Landorus to get a substitute to make things even more difficult. If you can get a Toxic into it before that case, it would be great. But at this turn, Fezandipity is just going to protect.
All eyes on Landorus and who it wants to target down. The Ogerpon is going to go for the Ivy Cudgel into the Incineroar. This is at +1, normally not doing too much damage, but it's a significant chunk, over a third, as the Landorus was targeting down again into this Incineroar. The double up gets the KO. Flavio is down a Pokemon early doors.
Shuka Berry not going to help you there. Enough damage coming out from that Ivy Cudgel to be picking up that double hit to take it down. And that was a big Pokemon to try and be eliminating the amount of damage that Adam could do here. Fezandipity stayed safe, but for what?
That's the thing, Fezandipity just going for the Protect, but it wasn't even targeted in that turn. So you actually called it, Sierra, saying about the passive turn potentially from Flavio, and that's exactly what came into fruition here. The one thing he does have access to now, though, is that free switch into the Excalibur that joined us in turn 0. Able to apply pressure to that Landorus with something like the Ice Shard with that priority to threaten that 4x super effective damage. You know that Adam cannot terrestrialize it.
But Adam as well can look at potentially just swapping something out here, or even just protecting and trying to deal with that Excalibur with a hit coming out from the Ogerpon, because that certainly is going to be hurting as well.
That is very true. A lot of options for our trainers here. You can see the terrestrialization being hovered on by Flavio here, wanting to give it that water typing, so it's not going to have to take so much damage here, and just able to, you know, give that bulk in its position against something like the opposing Ogerpon. It is going to be dealing a lot of damage with those Ivy Cudgels, but you got to make sure that you don't accidentally catch a grass type move.
Well, water, terrestrialize, and Fezandipity, not the words that I thought I'd ever say here at
Well, there you go.
UIC, but hey, we're saying it, and I cannot wait. Protect on Excalibur, make sure that you're not going to be taking a powerful hit this time around. It's Fezandipity's time to go onto the offensive, but again, hitting into the not protected Pokemon. Ivy Cudgel is not good, it shouldn't be doing too much, but that's still a significant chunk of damage after the terrestrialization. Citrus Berry will get a little bit of recovery up though.
The terrestrialization was incredibly necessary there. You can also see the follow-up from this Landorus with the Earth Power, but it was going into the Excalibur, so a nice protect on Flavio's side. But it really, for me, is about this Fezandipity. It goes for the Sludge Bomb, not doing too much damage, and of course, Ogerpon, just already poisoned, takes that little bit of chip.
It is going to be toxic damage that is stacking up more and more, though, especially with the grassy terrain no longer on the field. So you're not offsetting a little bit of that recovery. So there is a potential that even on the next turn, it is going to be close, I believe. The Landorus attempting to hit into the Excalibur, it is still so scary. But you do have the information now if you're Flavio, hey, that was kept around. You can be swapping out, but the Gastrodon's already still low on health. But you also don't want to be hitting into a potential swap and doing knock.
And I don't think you have to be worried about the Gastrodon if you're Adam. You have that Rillaboom in the back nice and safe. That can also bring back that grassy terrain that has left the field, give your Pokemon a little bit of recovery, as well as apply that fake up pressure. So Gastrodon isn't really playing a big role here. So if you are Adam, you can kind of almost feel like Flavio's down to 2 remaining Pokemon. The Gastrodon isn't going to play a strong offensive role.
It will be Rillaboom swapping in over on Adam's end in lieu of that Landorus Eye. And of course, that will be the grassy terrain set back up. So that'll be a little bit of recovery. Could make all the difference in this turn. Not the only swap, though. We got to see the hover and the poor Gastrodon, your poor Gastrodon, coming back onto the field to stare down this big bad Rillaboom.
Hey, it's trying its best. You're going to see the Ivy Cudgel come through from the Ogerpon. It has got the attack boost, however, so as much as the Gastrodon would normally really resist this attack, it's not going to be able to hang on here. Flavio will be down to the last 2 remaining Pokemon. And the thing is, the Excalibur left as well. You would have liked it to try and target down into that opposing Rillaboom, because although it has got the poison from the Sludge Bomb, you can see how little damage that Fezandipity is actually dealing out on the field, particularly as it is a Water Terror now. There's not a lot it can do to Rillaboom, and there's a lot Rillaboom can do to it.
And that'll be the grassy terrain recovery to be coming in for all of these Pokemon for that damage tick. And that is going to be the Ogerpon Heartflame surviving past this turn and only a smidge done into this Rillaboom. I think that there's just a little bit too much momentum taken by Adam. So sure, both of these Pokemon are toxic, but then what?
Baxcalibur on the field now, and it's in a position where, again, you've got the fake out potential from the Rillaboom, so it's very difficult for Flavio to try and navigate this. The Assault Vest on the opposing Rillaboom as well just means it's going to be able to take anything Fezandipity throws its way with those Sludge Bombs really, really well. You saw how little damage that previous one did. If you're Baxcalibur, yes, you can go for something like the Ice Shard for the priority, maybe just try and get the KO on that Ogerpon.
You could go for it. Make sure the Ogerpon doesn't have the capability of attacking, because it does get one more attack off before it does get KO'd at the end of this turn because of that toxic damage. No amount of Grassy Terrain recovery is going to be helping you at that point. There is still swapping potentials, though, and Adam's been so good at calling the protect. Fezandipity will protect to start this one off.
Let's see if Adam has called this one correctly. It's actually going to be the double. Maybe Flavio just trying to scout out what the opponent wants to do, as well as burn the fake out on this Rillaboom. You can see it was going down into the opposing Baxcalibur here, just trying to stop it from maybe even going for something like a Sword Stance, as the Ogerpon also goes for damage to no avail. The other nice thing about the double protect is the poison stacking up.
You get through the fake out, you get through this Ogerpon, and you get a little bit of more recovery on this Fezandipity. It was taken decently low to about a third at one point, but with the Citrus Berry and the damage, the heal over and over, it's been getting up. And now Ogerpon has been dealt with. Slowly but surely, getting your way through the team.
I actually really like that observation by Flavio, playing it very, very safe. You know, there was no need to go for something like the Ice Shard into the KO because the double protect enables it anyway. The only way Adam could have got around that is by switching the Ogerpon out, and you don't necessarily want to do that with the boosts. You now as well get the free switch into one of your healthy Pokemon in the back.
Exactly. You still have quite healthy Pokemon, though, and Pokemon that can be dealing a lot of damage, too. You do have to be careful with that Landorus in particular, though, because of the fact that you don't have that fake out anymore with the Rillaboom already being on the field, and you are at mercy of the Ice Shard. Of course, it can protect while you try and just deal with the Baxcalibur and deal some damage into it. Looking at this Rillaboom, though, it is just going to be those grass moves and a Bug-type move in that U-turn.
My question is, though, what stops Adam just going for a Grassy Glide into the Fezandipity that's also just protected, unlikely to be able to get that double protect, and at the same time, the Urshifu with that Choice Scarf can go for a very speedy, very powerful close combat into the Baxcalibur. It looks like all the momentum really is on Adam's side of the field.
And it has been from the beginning, too. This is definitely a slower team, and when we have these Pokemon that are just so powerful through, that can just kind of KO through your team before the poison damage kind of takes hold, that's where things can kind of fall a little bit short, and that's where Fezandipity has kind of been struggling in this meta just a little bit.
Yes, Fezandipity kind of hasn't shown its full potential necessarily. Yes, it's got the poison on the board, but Adam just has all the counters to Flavio's team to not enable him to play as defensively as he would like. We actually see the Grassy Glide go down into the opposing Baxcalibur, giving it the chip to enable and guarantee and lock in the close combat KO onto the opposing Baxcalibur.
I mean, the Fezandipity has not been the biggest
not
issue all game. The Baxcalibur definitely can threaten. So getting rid of that in that order. Fezandipity doing something, though. That will be the 1KO over onto your Shifu. Okay, that was at a lowered special defense, but Fezandipity will take a KO. But since the Baxcalibur has been taken down, it won't be able to deal with the final two Pokemon.
Yes, and it was nice for Fezandipity to show us that it can get those big knockouts as well. Moonblast, a really nice choice of move on there to cover for all of the Urshifu that are out there. But this is the Pokemon you've got to try and get through. A Pokemon like the Landorus with the Life Orb and that Sheer Force can just do so much damage with something like a Sludge Bomb at this point.
And this Rillaboom has been taking damage more and more after turn, but offset with that Grassy Terrain recovery again. It's not anywhere near being taken down. Grassy Glide to be dealing the damage first. Super effective because of the Water Chastisation will do so much. And out of two, you can keep it safe. Sure, you can go for that double hit into it, but a substitute as well will make sure that you're good going on into the next turn. Sludge Bomb will deal the damage. We will get the round of Grassy Terrain recovery, though, and I don't know if the Toxic is quite enough yet to take care of that Rillaboom. It's going to be close. Ooh, but no dice.
Yeah, and even if you go for the Protect now on the Fezandipity to maybe try and get the KO onto that opposing Rillaboom, the fact that the Landorus has set up that substitute really does secure Adam's victory in this game one. I think Flavio can see the writing on the wall here and is just ready to get into game two.
100% here. And Flavio, I mean, hey, I'm impressed the Fezandipity got that one KO, that one Moonblast KO, you know? Wasn't your Shifu that had the special defense drop, but see that there is a potential little bit of damage and how much those poisons can be stacking up. Unfortunately, not just enough. So that's where I'm curious with how things will be adjusted. I'm sorry, Lou. I think the biggest thing for me is that the Gastrodon never got an opportunity to do absolutely anything. It was there to kind of scare Adam off from the Urshifu. Well, the Urshifu with the close combat still feels so good into so much of the team that I feel like you just have to take your Urshifu the old-fashioned way, or the old-fashioned way for Flavio, which is the Pheasantipede.
100%. I do have to agree with you. As much as I love the Gastrodon, at this particular juncture, it just doesn't have the capabilities to be able to deal with the opposing side on Adam's side. It really does only have the potential to threaten that opposing Urshifu, and Adam wasn't playing. It wasn't going to risk going for that surging strikes and falling into the trap. This was a really nice play by Adam as well, going for the sword stance there, being able to just offset those intimidates and parting shots that Flavio was really trying to utilize, and it just meant that the offensive pressure was constantly coming out from Adam's side.
Especially when you're looking at the constant protects that Flavio did to get that poison chip as well, get past through some fake out turns, etc. You have the capability to go for that sword stance, and you weren't really threatened too much with that Heartflame Ogre Pawn after you Terastallize anyways. The Sludge Bomb, we got to see how little that was doing. The Incineroar is not threatening it with anything other than a potential parting shot. So it was definitely more than safe to make sure that, hey, sure, you've pivoted in and out multiple times, but that's about where it ends.
You know, Rillaboom was having a great time on Adam's side when you think about it. There was a Gastrodon, there was a Water Terrestrialized Pheasantipede, both Pokemon that Rillaboom has no trouble clearing off the board. As well, when you take a look at the Baxcalibur, you know, its only Ice-type move is that Ice Shard, not known to be able to deal a huge amount of damage. So generally speaking, the Rillaboom was pretty safe, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Adam make sure that that comes to Game 2 as well.
I think the biggest thing that we haven't necessarily talked about when it's Flavio's team versus Adam's as well is just how fast and the amount of priority coming out from Adam. Adam's Pokemon are quite speedier than Flavio's, even just on a natural level here. Getting into Game 2, another speedy, strong lead coming out from Adam. Double Grass yet again. Pheasantipede and Incineroar to start for Flavio.
Do you know what? I really like this adjustment by Flavio. Bringing the Pheasantipede out front and center, it can try and get those Toxics off a little bit earlier in the game, as well as the fact it doesn't have that Water Terrestrialization anymore. It's not going to be worried about taking these Grass-type moves. The Intimidate, being able to kind of apply pressure to that opposing Ogerpon, and now the Fake Out's on the field.
Where it's tough, though, is Adam has the faster fake out, so there is the fake out potential into the Pheasantipede or into the Incineroar, and even just setting up with his Ogerpon for a Sword Stance. So it's kind of a lead that maybe is a little passive coming out from Flavio, and there is a potential for Adam here to take just a big lead here. Fake out will go into the Pheasantipede, no fake out from Incineroar, 3 Sword Stance.
This Sword Stance is huge early doors in this game too. No fake out coming out from the Incineroar. Instead, it's going to go for the parting shot and just try and bring that down. Does enable Flavio to get the Incineroar off the field to intimidate a little bit later on. And this free switch could be really nice to bring in one of these utility Pokemon in the back. I would not be, I am surprised to see Gastrodon still there, but Excalibur definitely the perfect choice against 2 Grass-type Pokemon.
Yeah, this can definitely try and make a little bit more headway here. You do have the opportunity of just trying to intimidate Cycle 2. Rillaboom is now down to -1. The Ogerpon is at +1, but if it wants to keep that +1, if there is the Intimidate, it would have to Terastallize. It is the +1 now, but you want to be trying to eliminate if you're Flavio, because the Ogerpon hitting into that Pheasantipede is going to be so much damage.
That's very true, and you can see the Excalibur in a position where it can go for some offensive damage. It could always try and go for a Sword Stance of its very own, try and get a lot of pressure on the field, but I think if you're Flavio, the mistakes in Game 1 was the fact that you weren't getting enough damage down on the board. So if you are Flavio here, you want to try and make sure you're not recreating those errors and just trying to get a lot of damage out. Something like the Rillaboom that's able to switch off with a U-turn as well. You want to make sure it's not coming in nice and healthy in the end game like in Game 1.
And that's where we'd see the hover. Do I not with the potential Toxic. Spiky Shield this time around coming out from that Ogerpon. You have your +1 attack. You want to make sure you keep your health as well. Toxic into the Rillaboom. The way to badly poison it so the damage will start stacking up slowly. Emphasis on slowly, but surely here. U-turn now into the Baxcalibur. Adam has a chance to pivot.
Nice to see the speed advantage of the Pheasantipede there, just being able to get the damage on the board before the Rillaboom is able to leave. That just kind of puts a little bit of a spanner in the works for when it rejoins later on. The Urshifu, however, definitely a difficult Pokemon to deal with into that Baxcalibur with the close combat, considering as well Baxcalibur wasn't able to go for any damage. The Glaive Rush going into the Spiky Shield, it takes damage itself for its troubles.
Yeah, that's definitely a rough one there, especially when you're in Flavio's end. You need some of that damage, and now staring down the Urshifu, this is the situation you were in before, and you swapping out into the Gastrodon to make sure you weren't hit by a Surging Strikes. Well, close combat is just as good if you're Adam at this point. You're still going to be dealing so much into the Excalibur. You deal so much into the Gastrodon, so you're not even threatened too much of it by that point.
You just have to watch out for the close combat coming through from the Urshifu, particularly if you are that Baxcalibur and you switch out for maybe something like the Incineroar. Being able to throw an Intimidate down sounds great, but you are going to have to take that close combat. Of course, with the Intimidate, you are likely to be able to still hang on, particularly with the Incineroar, just being able to have that extra bulk, but it's a difficult situation. It would take a lot of damage from Flavio very early on.
Did get to see that the Moonblast from the Pheasantipede could have dealt a lot of damage if there is the potential of the close combat. Instead, though, it's going to be Incineroar. Still wouldn't appreciate a close combat, but it will be a round of Intimidate. Bring this Ogerpon back to neutral. Bring this Urshifu down to -1 and lowering a little bit of that damage. Terastallization now, though, coming out.
Yeah, it's going to bring some sparkling to the EUIC stage. It's once again that Ogerpon being able to get the Embody aspect, boost up its attack stat, as well as drop that grass typing, making it a little less vulnerable to this Pheasantipede.
Yeah, you want to make sure that the Pheasantipede is doing as little as possible, and if we want to be getting the Toxic, it has to do it the old-fashioned way. Nice U-turn coming out from Adam here as well. That's just going to be doing a little bit of chip into the Incineroar, but you no longer have that attack drop, and you can pivot back out. And that kind of covering, too, no matter what was coming out over on Flavio's end.
I honestly like that for the Incineroar as well. It's able to get in relatively safely and can apply Fake Out pressure in this next turn. The Ivy Cudgel as well doing negligible damage. This really was a nice turn for the Incineroar. Not so nice for the opposing Ogerpon, not dealing too much damage and getting the poison from the Toxic on the Pheasantipede.
What I think the funniest thing is with this Pheasantipede is that you know that the Toxic chain is just not reliable, and really prioritizing getting that Toxic off, having to go for that. So you're not doing any initial damage off of it, even though you have an ability that's kind of built around that.
Yeah.
But you're relying on it so much. But that's 2 of Adam's Pokemons now that are now badly poisoned. Sure, well, the Grassy Train is up. It won't be the biggest thing, but it could... this goes on longer and longer, and Adam hasn't had that same damage potential yet in Game 2 as he had in Game 1. Longer the match goes on, the better it is for Flavio.
That's the thing, the Sand Timers have only started ticking away against these toxic Pokemon, and the Rillaboom's even in the back where it's not going to be affected by that at all. It only takes effect when it's on the field. So Ogerpon's still got a lot of HP remaining. There is the potential of this grassy terrain as well, and even if it goes down, Rillaboom can reset that up. No surprises to see the Fake Out, however, go down into that opposing Landorus Eye, and of course Ogerpon utilizing the opportunity to get another Swords Dance up.
Yeah, just going for it, trying to make sure you could be doing as much damage as possible. As 3 now after that, the Landorus can't be setting up at all. Sludge Bomb just going to be good for a little bit of damage here. It's slowly but surely, but I'm worried about this Ogerpon at this point. Plus 2 attacks, sorry, but that is still a lot.
Yes, definitely. Ogerpon is a formidable threat, but there's a lot that Flavio seems to be doing to try and target it down and remove it from the field. The issue for me, if you're Flavio, is the fact that this Landorus is now really unchecked. It can go for something like the Earth Power into this opposing Incineroar, or it could even try and get something like a substitute set up, because there's not really a lot that Incineroar or Pheasantipede can do to it. So if you can get the substitute set up and keep yourself a little bit protected on the field, that could be a really good endgame strategy for Adam.
100%, and that's going to be one of the things too. And I think you were pretty safe there coming out from Adam to kind of try and set up either one of those Pokemon. Protect on Pheasantipede this time around. We saw Adam was very good at predicting where the protects were the first time around, but this time will be hitting Ivy Cudgel into that Pheasantipede. The bird staying safe. Landorus, though, that'll be the substitute.
That's exactly what Landorus wants to get, and although there is the newfound confidence from Pheasantipede going for these protects, it's not really going to be able to deal too much damage at this point in time. The Incineroar going for the parting shot. This is a nice way to start negating some of that pressure that the Ogerpon is building and allow Flavio to bring in a Pokemon from the back. That Gastrodon is still secret. It is still safe for now, but Flavio is wondering, is it the moment? And I really think the only time to bring Gastrodon in this matchup is when that Urshifu is in play. So really nice to bring the Baxcalibur in.
Yeah, the Gastrodon's in a really rough territory otherwise. The Baxcalibur coming in. You have the pressure onto the Landorus at this point, especially since it is behind the substitute, so it is kind of stuck here at this point to where you can break that and try and deal a little bit of damage at this point. Grassy Terrain is going to be ending, so that's going to be done with the health healing this time around, so the toxic damage is going to be stacking up just a little bit more and more. And you can't be attempting to go and just try and preserve this Pheasantipede and just trying to intimidate cycle a little bit.
I mean, we talk about preserving and protecting Pheasantipede, right? It's sitting there with a full HP bar. Flavio definitely has done well conserving it a little bit more in this game too compared to game 1, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Adam start switching onto the offensive a little bit more. That's what really gave him the momentum in the first match. And Ogerpon, it is ticking away. That poison is stacking up, and it needs to be able to start getting the big damage out as soon as it can. Pheasantipede just went for protect. It's going to be a little bit more exposed. Wouldn't be surprised to see the Ivy Cudgel come that way.
It's going to be the Pheasantipede swapping out this time around, though. The Ogerpon has gotten enough Swords Dances. You want to make sure that damage is lowered for when it does start going on the offensive, because you're right, there is a timer on it. You want to make sure you can do that damage now. So that is going to be Incineroar swapped in. That'll be a round of Intimidate, and Ice Shard into the Landorus. Priority will be acting first to go ahead and break that substitute, not letting this Landorus just sit there unchecked.
And with the health that that Baxcalibur has as well, we'll have to see how this goes down here, but it's in an interesting spot the next turn to go for another one of those ice shards. Okay, maybe not. Critical hit comes through. Baxcalibur is out of there. So yes, the Incineroar is now alone on the field. Flavio not happy with that play at all.
Earth Power targeted into as well. Shuka Berry just helping the Incineroar hold on. Just 4 HP left.
I mean, the Landorus is in prime position right now. It, yes, lost its substitute, but it doesn't care. The Ogerpont's got it back, get rid of its biggest threat, and then is able to apply so much pressure to that opposing Incineroar. I mean, things are looking very dicey for Flavio. You do still have the Gastrodon and Pheasantipede at full HP, but let's not be kidding ourselves. These are not the offensive powerhouses that Adam has on his side of the field.
We'll have to hope that Gastrodon can be a powerhouse and fast, though. Hitting the field, definitely have to be relying on it. The Grassy Terrain is gone, so you aren't going to be hit by a potential Grassy Glide priority over onto the Ogerpon. And you do have the potential still of Terra on your end to try and get out of a potential grass weakness there. It does feel bad that you might be potentially checked into that, but at the same time, you do have the coverage moves to actually deal some damage going on. Ice Beam, considerably too, could actually effectively deal with this Landorus.
I want to say when there's a Gastrodon, there's a way, but it's a very long way for Gastrodon to be able to come back into this. However, that being said, let's look at the potential. Gastrodon is running Ice Beam. That's something that the Landorus does not want to take. The Ogerpon as well no longer has the grassy terrain on the field, won't get that priority grassy glide, but I think its natural speed is going to be able to allow it to go before that Gastrodon regardless, but at least it won't get the boost that you get from grassy glide, and maybe there's some hope for the Gastrodon, particularly as the Terrestrialization has not been used on Flavio's side of the field yet.
Definitely have to be hoping, and with that bug terrestrialization, gonna make sure that you are gonna survive through a potential grassy glide. You do have to be careful though, because now you are gonna be weak to an Ivy Cudgel, and that could be fired off if there is even a prediction, or even if just the Gastrodon can't do anything on this turn. Going into this is the Grassy Glide, so Gastrodon will stay safe for now, but it's not the only one that's going to be staying safe, as the Landorus did go for the Protect, so no Ice Beam there, and you are not in a great spot going into the next turn. At least the Parting Shot can lower this attack just a little bit more.
This might be the cutest thing I have ever seen, the bug-type Gastrodon on the field. You're right, though. It was a fantastic Terrestrialization call in the face of the Grassy Glide, but now that Ivy Cudgel is in prime position to be able to get the KO on the Gastrodon in the next turn. A wise defensive play from Adam, stopping that Ice Beam from being able to get the knockout. The one thing that's nice, though, Ogerpon's gone. It's completely out of there, so maybe Gastrodon is crawling its way back into this match after all.
The more and more damage from those Toxics coming on through. Going to be enough this time around to take care of that Ogerpon. So actually, Terrestrialization coming up from the Gastrodon looking good on that turn. And sure, the Rillaboom's still in the back, but the thing is now since, hey, it's a bug type, that Rillaboom's actually going to have a hard time actually dealing with that Gastrodon. So this is quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the power that the Landorus can naturally deal out anyway is still going to be able to try and put the Gastrodon in check, but if Gastrodon's able to hang on and just go for one Ice Beam, then that opposing Landorus is gone. The one issue that's coming into fruition though as well is the Rillaboom coming back. It's got that fake out. It's going to be able to stop the Gastrodon from going for that here, but it does have the utility to go for a Protect, and I almost wouldn't be surprised to see Flavio once again just go for the double Protect, burn that fake out, enable a little bit of damage from that poison on the opposing Rillaboom to tick down.
You can either just go for the double Protect or try and make a call. You definitely don't want to be on the wrong end of the fake out and have that Pokemon potentially taken out. But if you can also get the call right, it could be potentially huge going in on this turn. So you definitely have a decision to make. When your Pokemon aren't the same strong offensive Pokemon that Adam has, it could be a risk worth taking.
Yes, if you are the Gastrodon, you want to kind of, I think, avoid the Rillaboom at this point. The Woodhammer, Grassy Glide, U-turn not going to be doing too much. You've got to find a way to get the Landorus down and maybe enable the Pheasantipede and the Incineroar to deal with that partner Pokemon in the form of the Rillaboom.
Swapping out the Pheasantipede though, Incineroar just on a sliver of health is going to be coming on in. That'll be the Intimidate, drop down the attack of the Rillaboom. Fake Out does go into the Gastrodon this time around. Critical hit Fake Out as well to deal that extra little bit of chip. A Sludge Bomb into the Gastrodon is going to be not near enough to take that out. A little bit of recovery now, and Flavio has the Fake Out pressure on this next turn.
I think Flavio really hoping the fake out was going to go down into that Pheasantipede slot, enabling the Ice Beam to come out from that Gastrodon. Was not happy to see the fake out come through, particularly the double up as well. I think Adam realizing that the Gastrodon needs to be taken down because, dare I say it was the threat at that point in time. And with the Pheasantipede in the back, it's not in a position where it can start applying that pressure. Something like the Sludge Bomb into the Rillaboom. Yes, it's not going to deal too much damage thanks to the Assault Vest, but it will start stacking up. And Flavio needs to start getting the knockouts. His Pokemon are relatively unhealthy compared to Adam's.
That's the thing. All the toxics in the world aren't going to help you if your Pokemon get taken out at this point. And with these two both on a sliver of health, and just the Grassy Glide pressure coming out on the opposing end, and just the speed coming out from the Landorus, and both of these Pokemon actually in the first place, is definitely difficult. Protect over on this turn coming out from the Landorus, so just going to be the Rillaboom to go ahead and attack. Actually, not even. Fake Out will stop that this time.
Nice call from Flavio going for the fake out into the opposing Rillaboom, with the Ice Beam going into the protect on Adam's side. So Adam, I think, playing phenomenally well. Again, as Assault Vest Rillaboom, it couldn't protect even if it wanted to. And at the end of the day, there's not a lot that either of these Pokemon can do to get through it.
And if you're Adam, you don't even feel bad about that because, hey, you're not necessarily taking the most from the Toxic so far. Flavio would have to hit 6 protects in a row for anything to be happening over that with your poison. So take the one turn of Fake Out. You're still fine. You still have all that offensive pressure in the world over on this next turn. And I do not see the Gastrodon being allowed to get away with an Ice Beam at any time.
I think that turn in particular where Adam doubled up into it just stopped its momentum in its tracks. It actually had a lot of pressure on the field, but having to take that fake out and the sludge bomb just meant that it's not as threatening. And at the end of the day, I think if you're Flavio and you lose that Gastrodon, you don't really have a way to deal with this Landorus, and it's just going to be able to sweep through your team. Defensive plays on this Gastrodon at this point in time, very wise. The sludge bomb was coming into its direction from this opposing Landorus, and the Rillaboom, however, is not going to be able to KO the Incineroar. I was going to say, just ignoring the Gastrodon, trying to get an easy knockout, but it was not to be. The Incineroar is still here.
Hey, Incineroar is known for one thing, and it's being incredibly annoying. This time in the way that it's going to be surviving past this turn. And now parting shot into the Landorus, and a chance for a pivot coming out from Flavio.
The one thing I like about the parting shot as well is it is lowering that special attack too. So that is something that is going to be affecting the Landorus and making those sludge bombs, the earth powers, just a little bit more underwhelming. And the issue is the Landorus is so strong, it can easily afford to take one parting shot and still be a formidable threat. Gastrodon reaping the benefits of the grassy terrain, and now Fezandipity in a prime position to try and maybe get that Moonblast off into that opposing Urshifu.
Yeah, you definitely need to deal with something here. There's been so many turns of not much coming out from Flavio, and both players have been really good at protecting their king, so to say. Landorus over on Adam's end, and dare I say it, Gastrodon over on Flavio's. That king swapping out, Incineroar going to be swapping back in at this point. You have another round of Intimidate. You also have the fake out pressure or to eat a hit going up that way.
Yes, and I like the fact that the Incineroar is on the field just for that Intimidate, but it's really null and void considering the U-turn not only gets the KO here, but is going to be to enable the Urshifu to reset that Intimidate coming back in later.
Flavio did not look happy about that one. Fezandipity does have a chance to attack here at this point, but now Rillaboom hitting the field once again, and Fezandipity will be taking a hit first. Firing off Retaliation. Ooh. Lasted just chipping away. It's not much, but it's honest work.
Yeah, and I like the targeting there because it must have been so tempting to go down into that opposing Urshifu, particularly if you were thinking maybe it's going to go for something like the close combat here and lower its defenses and special defenses, but instead just going into this Landorus, because at the end of the day, Landorus is the Pokemon that I think Flavio is really going to struggle to remove. You can kind of play the stalling game a little bit against this opposing Rillaboom, but not only is the Landorus difficult, that full health Urshifu in the back is so formidable now. I mean, how do you deal with it?
Well, this Rillaboom, you have the fake out pressure over on Adam's end, but we got to see the lock-in from Flavio, just making the call that I need to do something here at this point. Swap out her from this Landorus. We saw the double attempt into that, but the Urshifu is going to be coming into its place instead.
Let's see how this plays out. The fake out will stop one of the Pokemon on Flavio's side from moving. It's going to be the Fezandipity. So all eyes with the 3 minutes left on the clock are on the Gastrodon. Only a little bit of chip with that Ice Beam. No secondary effects coming through. It's, of course, going to just be getting a little bit of recovery. I think Fezandipity, though, if it can get that Moonblast off, will be able to get that KO.
That's going to be the if, though. And the 3-minute timer here at this point, we have to start looking at Pokemon counts. And it's been a long time that Flavio has been on these two Pokemon. And, of course, when you have a team that is more slowly built, that'll be a big thing, and Adam has to be really worried about the preservation. Thing is, though, that the Moonblast could actually be in a range that you could potentially pick up the KO if there is that Landorus swap, and if you can get it down 2-2, we're going to be going off the HP bars of Pokemon, so there is still a win condition here.
That's very true, and the Gastrodon still stopping, thanks to its Storm Drain ability, the opposing Urshifu from going for those Surging Strikes that must be ever so tempting for it. It is Choice Scarf, so it will be locked into whatever it goes for. Possibly even see something like the Ice Spinner here, just to be able to get some good damage on the board without dropping your special defense like Close Combat would enable. Or at the same time, now with only 2 minutes left on the clock, do you want to keep rotating those Pokemon and preserving them? Could see something like a U-turn, but from the Gastrodon, it's just to protect.
Flavio needs a KO, and it's not going to be from the Gastrodon this turnaround. Ice Spinner instead into it. This point, it'll be the Moonblast, fire off, not nearly enough for a KO since no special defense lowered at this point. And now, sure, you are safe past the Rillaboom, but with that Unseen Fist taking that damage, you can't take the KO now, you lose this match, and I don't think I'm just gonna let it happen.
Honestly, it's always so devastating to see a Protect that then the Urshifu targets down into. I think if you're Flavio there, you're really hoping that Adam's going to try and capitalize on the Pheasantipity and just get it off the field, because those Moonblasts are indeed very threatening, but instead just trying to wash this Gastrodon away.
And that's the thing. You just need to get even just the HP down. If Adam doesn't lose a Pokemon and gets enough HP done, he's good. If you get enough HP down and you lose a Pokemon, then you can still be good. Urshifu, assist, that is going to be enough to take down the Gastrodon. The Pheasantipity won't be able to take 2 KOs, so as the time ticks down, Adam can start celebrating this 2-0.
Gastrodon put up an epic fight, but now it is really all eyes on this Pheasantipity. It's able to get the KO, but there's still, as you've mentioned, Sierra, a 2v1 Pokemon deficit for Flavio. And as those seconds tick away, the trainer who has the most Pokemon remaining will be able to come out victorious.
Yeah, and at this point, just under 30 seconds left. Won't have an opportunity to go for another turn in battle. It was such a cool concept coming out from Flavio with this team, and I'm really not surprised to see a timer. I'm not going to be surprised if this is a theme throughout the day when we're looking at a team with this Gastrodon and this Pheasantipity, and I think played as well as it could. It's just a tough thing. We're going to not even get all the Pokemon on the field before the timer runs out at this point. Landorus, Rillaboom, I mean, that is done, but wow, what an insane match.
Huge congratulations to Adam for being able to completely battle through that tireless match. Is the victor. I think he just needed to double check for a second, make sure, but huge congratulations to Adam, winner of this round 3 match.
The relief on his face, oh my goodness. That was a long match. That was a 2-0 match, and I thought our last match seemed like it went on for a 2-1, a 3-game set. This one seems like it went on for 2 sets worth of Pokemon, but so well played. I mean, when you're bringing a team of the best Pokemon and such strong powerhouses, I mean, it's tough. I really do applaud Flavio for this team. I think it's so creative. But looking at the Pokemon matchups just one by one, it was so tough. In the Gastrodon, I mean, didn't really get to fire off any moves.
Do you know what? I'm going to say game 1, Gastrodon, it didn't really do what it was supposed to do. It was having a difficult time, okay? But I have to say, the way Flavio worked with his Pokemon in that game 2, even though things obviously didn't go his way, the way he was able to still find those win conditions with the Pheasantipity or the Gastrodon going for that bug terrestrialization, I think did just show the high caliber of player he is and the way that this very unique team operates. Being able to see the Pheasantipity early doors going for these poisons, I think was a really great adjustment by Flavio, knowing that yes, it's going to be a long game. He wants to make sure that he's able to get that damage ticking away throughout the match. And if he's able to play defensively enough, he's going to get those knockouts.
One thing that I think is tough, even just in this current meta, is we got to see the Toxic get hit multiple times.
Yeah.
But the Grassy Terrain consistently making it so, hey, what maybe should have been KO'd a lot sooner is now going to be surviving 2-3 extra turns there was kind of difficult. Even in that first game, we saw the Rillaboom swap back in on the pivotal turn where the Ogerpon Heartflame would have been KO'd. But it gets that recovery first, so it's still going to be sticking around for one more match. And I think that's just really tough. You already weren't dealing too much damage with that Pheasantipity, and you were locked into using Toxic because you needed it. It was pivotal. You couldn't rely on the Toxic chain.
I completely agree, and I think that match moment where the Baxcalibur went down was so pivotal for Flavio. It's a little bit like the story of Gastrodon in Game 1. Baxcalibur in Game 2 really didn't do a lot, and it just meant that, Flavio was very early on with these 3 Pokemon. But, of course, the Gastrodon was there. I was delighted to see it, particularly in its bug terrestrialize, and I know a lot of you guys at home engaging with our social media will sometimes share some awesome art. I'd love to see some art of the Gastrodon with its little bug eyes on. I think it'd be so cute.
It's the best Tarot Jewel by far. The little bug. The heart's also really cute on the small Pokemon, but I think maybe the art is the most that you're going to see from Gastrodon going on forward. I think it's very clear why Ogerpon Wellspring kind of overtook it. You can actually have some more offensive pressure. The Gastrodon's just, It's just a poor little guy. He's trying
his best.
It's just too slow, and I mean, you can just play around it.
But I think as well, that really showed how well Ogerpon Hearthflame is doing in the meta at the moment. Even though there were, parting shots and intimidates, one Swords Dance can really swing at the momentum.
Well, we got to see how relieved Adam was after that match. So let's go hear from him over on the main stage with Charlie.
Bienvenue, trainers. Welcome to the stage here. I'm here with Adam Cherfaoui, your winner of the EUIC Swiss Round 3. We're all invited to Fezzendipity's sinister masquerade ball. But for Adam, it was not the last dance. How are you feeling now, Adam?
I'm feeling great, because it's my first time I won on stream. I was in 0-3 on stream, and now I break the curse, so I'm very happy about that.
Félicitations to you, Adam. That's fantastic. So, you see a Fezzendippity on the team sheet across the table.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
It's funny because a friend of mine, Aurélien Le Fur, played played Fezzendippity in this tournament, and I played some best of 3 against that, so I got experience.
Oh, wow.
I know some damage of my Pokemon, etc. So
something you weren't expecting there, and the home crowd here is cheering for Adam no end, showing their support. So, game 1. Your Ogerpon, of course, was taking part in all of the masquerade dancing as well, going for the Swords Dance.
Yeah.
How crucial was Swords Dance for you here in this match?
When I saw his team, I was like, okay, Ogerpon is very, very huge because he outspeed everything in the team. And the main issue was probably the hit run if I terrestrialize my Ogerpon. And I saw he didn't bring them. So I think I just need to deal a lot of damage, force the terrestrialization to avoid mind games, and I can clean easily, I think.
I see, sure. And yes, the Ogerpon terrestrializing, giving it that boost in spite of the parting shots coming out from the Incineroar. And then that last game, it went to timer. I mean, your opponent, Flavio, really timed out there. The orchestra was winding up their music. But how were you able to maintain that stamina, that mental focus?
Yeah. Last time on stream at other tournaments, I was not very focused on my games, and I know I have the shot to have the game if I play slowly, and because Gastrodon deal no damage, Fezzendippity too. So if I'm able to keep my Pokemon, I know with the timer I can win the battle.
Okay, fantastic. Yes, you're able to stay resolute in your game plan. Well, that's excellent to hear. And now, how are you feeling about the rest of the day?
I hope I can make day 2, and maybe more. We don't know. And yeah, I enjoy the tournament. I really like UIC. It's one of my favorite tournaments. So I hope I can keep the momentum.
Yeah, well, we've got our fingers crossed for you, Adam. Let's hope you can as well. Now, tell me, Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle, which one is for you?
Bulbasaur.
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 Okay. We've got some support out here for Bulbasaur as well. We've got 2 votes for Bulbasaur, 1 for Charmander so far. How's that going to shake up over the weekend? Finally, Adam, any shout-outs you want to give?
Yeah. Can I do it in French?
Ah, bien sûr.
Alors, tout d'abord, merci la team PE, on est là, voilà. Ensuite, toute la commu FR, French community in general. And my mom, my dad, my sister, I hope they watch the stream. And yeah, all my friends, IRL friends, like les potes de Clé, j'espère vous regardez le stream. Voilà. And that's it.
Were you saying?
Oh, just one.
Yeah.
And big shout out to how to say like no, I don't know how to say.
Yeah, well, in French, what is it? Yeah, not sure.
Oh, yeah.
Not sure.
And Esper is my favorite Pokemon. It's the best.
Which one, sorry?
Esper.
Espeon.
Esper.
Esper, okay.
Esper.
Not running an Esper this weekend, though. That's a shame.
No.
We'd love to see it coming out. You were showing out Team Peru at the beginning there in French. Is that what you were doing? Said Team Peru out in the beginning to the crowd.
No, French.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
I
French.
see. I see.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Well, okay, Adam, thank you very much for
Thank
that.
you.
Merci beaucoup and bon chance. for the rest of the weekend. Well, that's EUIC, that's round 3, and of all the things, we saw a Pheasantipity. Sierra and Lou, that's all from me.